I have been in the Seventh-day Adventist Church ever since I was born. I'm four-generation Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist. And I just have always been in the work. I've worked at this since I was 5 years old. I remember my mother done quilts and stuff, and I sit underneath the quilt and push the needle back up for the ladies that had arthritis to tie quilts. And I've also, when I was in grade school, my mother taught me how to knit, and we had a knitting session because in Minnesota it was cold in the wintertime. We couldn't go out and play. So we knit 6-inch square blocks for the Red Cross. Well, boys and girls alike, we all sat out in the hall and made these squares. And then we'd give them to the Red Cross, and they'd sew them together, and they would put the name of the school on there. And we would get, when they'd give them to the veterans that were hurt during the service, and we would get letters back from the soldiers that how they enjoyed their quilts that we made.
It sounds like you've got a lot of experiences and a lot of stories that you could tell.
Yep.
And when you say fourth generation, that sounds like you go all the way back to your family, goes all the way back into the first origins of the church, probably.
Yep.
Like they were in the first generation 1840s group.
Yep. My great-grandfather was, through my mother's side of the family, the family tree goes back to my great-grandfather's aunt was Lincoln's aunt.
Abraham Lincoln?
Lincoln, yeah.
Wow.
That's how far our deal goes. When my great-grandfather died, I inherited the family tree, and we were surprised that he had traced it back that far. I had good Christian parents that nurtured me, and I grew up in nature. We had a small farm. We had goats, and we had our garden. During the Depression, my father was in the Navy, and my mother and I and my brother was just a baby at the time, and we shared our garden with all our neighbors.
Was this Minnesota or Michigan? Or?
Minnesota. My most interesting college course I took was interdenominational studies, to learn all the different beliefs of all the denominations.
Interesting.
And that was real interesting.
Yeah, I would bet. What do you remember from that? What did you learn from that?
Well, I had a lot of friends that were Jewish, and so when we got to pick 5 different churches that we had to do research on them and visit them. And being a nurse and a beautician, I had 4 Jewish ladies that I done their hair every single week. I mean, hair, nails, everything. And when I walked in, I had permission from the rabbi to visit the church. And I asked him if I could sit with these ladies, and they were shocked when I walked in and sat down beside him. And they asked me what I was doing in the synagogue. And I says, well, it's Sabbath, and I'm here with you. They were really surprised.
And happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the other religions that you studied?
They didn't stand out as much because...
Would they have been Christian or other?
I went to Catholic church, I went to a Baptist church, and can't remember the other churches that I visited. that I had to write paper on. It was a long time ago.
So you were married and had children?
Yeah, I been married twice. I lost both husbands. I have 2 children by my first husband, plus 32 foster kids I raised, all babies.
Wow.
So I have a lot. I'm in contact with some of them yet. And they're all grown.
Wow. Well, I think it's a great testament to the church that, I mean, you're such a big-hearted, person, such a loving and giving person.
You know, my grandmother done foster care. My mother done foster care. I done foster care, and now my daughter's in foster care, doing foster care work.
So that means that you take in children that don't have other homes. How long, is there a set period or?
Well, I had mostly babies. I had them from 24 hours up to 3 years old. I didn't take any. I had only one older.
And once you have them, how long do you keep them?
It
varies.
It just depends on what the situation is. I had one baby that I was there since I was a nurse. I worked in OB, and I was there for delivery, and I took it home from the hospital, and I had him until he was 9 months old. And the mother was only 14, and so I had the baby longer than anybody else. So they declared me legal guardian of the baby, so I could sign the adoption papers.
How many foster kids did you have?
32
Wow. Do you still?
in 15 years.
Oh, you don't do it now, though?
No.
Yeah, probably too much to
No.
take that on. Yeah, but wow, what a service to humanity that was.
I done that. That was my mission project.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
doing foster kids.
Neat. Is there a part of the church that helps you with that?
No,
You just did that on your own?
I did. I worked through Child and Family Services agency.
And your main qualification was being a nurse and being interested in doing it?
Yeah, I had to go to school and take training. You all have to take a lot of psychology classes and other classes to be a foster mom.
Even today, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. How much time of training?
Well, I had 2 years of college plus, I don't know, hour. I mean, we have every year you have to take so many hours of study to
So
keep your license up.
it's at least 2 years of training before
Yeah.
you could even apply.
Well, it depends on your background. What?
And you coming
how
in
you're
as a
qualified.
nurse, you were already a
Yeah.
nurse. So that probably, you
Yeah,
covered a lot
I-
of ground
yeah.
with that.
That's why I took babies.
Huh. Interesting.
I had a couple preemies that I took them right from the hospital. They were not even 5 pounds, but the doctor knew I was a nurse, so he let me take it home.
And so, what are some of your earlier memories from childhood or into your teen years or early 20s? Was that during the Depression or what?
When I was little, it was 36, 37, 38.
And
in there.
You were like a young child,
Yeah,
8, 9, 10?
I was 8 years old when my dad was in the service.
Service. So that was prior to World War II.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember anything specific from the Depression? Like even just one specific story that?
Yeah, I remember waiting in line for nylon stockings. from my mother. And we had to wait in line for, we had food stamps and stuff for different things. And I remember we had gas
Rations. Yeah.
And to see my grandparents, they lived quite a distance up in Minnesota on the farm, and Grandpa would save his gas points, so we would all pile in one car and to go see the grandparents. We all put our ration gas together to go see the grandparents.
And then you get so far and you got to park the car and walk the rest of the way. And then going up into World War II, were you involved in any, like, I don't know, Rosie the Riveter or anything like that kind of work?
No, I just...
Gathering rubber tires or...
No, I was too little. We moved out here in Arizona in 48 from Minnesota.
That's a big change.
Shock, culture shock. We moved here the 14th of December, and it was a blizzard in Minnesota, and we got to Tucson, it was 95 degrees.
Uh-huh. Why did you move to Arizona?
Because of my dad's health. He was real sick, he could hardly walk and the doctors told him that if he wanted to live a normal life, he'd better move to a warmer climate. He had the veterans, was before automatic cars, the 48 Ford, and it had gas, and everything was done all by hand when he drove out here.
Did it help him?
Yeah. Yeah, he was back in construction and done work. He was in a lot of pain yet, but he was a lot better.
So how long were you in Tucson and how did you get to Sedona?
Well, we lived in Tucson. I moved there when I was 12. I left to go back to college, back in Lincoln, Nebraska. Got married and lived in Michigan. Then I went to, my first husband passed away and I remarried about 3.5 years afterwards. And then it was just 2 years before I retired. And when I retired, my second husband, when we got married, I'd never been to Florida, and he had 2 kids in Florida, and he'd never been to Arizona. So we went to our honeymoon in Florida and came up here. We got married in May, and we came up here in December for Christmas, and I won.
Insofar as staying in Arizona.
So when we retired, we moved back here to take care of my mom.
Did you study your nursing at Andrews or?
No, I done part of it done most of it at Lincoln, Nebraska.
Just a regular nursing school, not
Yeah, 2-year nursing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you been vegetarian, you and your family, all this while?
Not mostly vegetarian, but we
Even
raised our
till
own
now.
chickens. Yeah,
Even now, even to this time, you're just mostly.
yeah,
Yeah, I understand that. It's hard sometimes to,
yeah. We had raised our own chickens and stuff, so
Yeah.
we used to eat chicken and stuff like that. But
Eggs.
my great-grandfather had raised turkeys.
Was there ever a time in your whole life when you ever like sort of drifted away from the church a little bit, or
It was when I was a teenager.
was that for a while, like a few years? Or?
No, it was just actually a few months, and I think the Lord put me in those times so that I could handle the kids when I was in academy. I was well, the dean was the same age as I was, because I was almost 19 when I graduated from academy, and I was head monitor and had to deal with problem children. It was when Thunderbird first opened up, and so they just took everybody, and there were some of them that should have been in special deals, and I think the Lord put me through that time so I could relate to them and help them, which if I hadn't gone through that experience, I wouldn't have been able to relate to those girls. My husband and I belonged to the Cottonwood Church, and the Lord just impressed me to come up here. And I walked in, and there was piles of clothes. I mean, there was no organization. There was just clothes everywhere, and they didn't know what to do. And so I came over and took over. In 2 weeks, they came down, and they didn't know the place. I had cleaned everything up and everything. So, I mean, that's why I've come here. Food bank's moving out, so I will have more room, and I can do more for my people than just giving them things. I mean, I can work with them spiritually and help find jobs and things. And it's hard because I lost my husband 10 years ago, and so I've been on my own. And he originally, we moved up here together, and he was helping me. And then...
What was his name?
Huh?
His
Bill.
name? Bill.
Billy.
Yeah.
And then I had Herman help me for a while, and he passed away. So if you use the Bible as your basic belief and understand the Bible, and get somebody, if you don't understand it, to help you understand it. And pray that the Lord will open your mind that you can understand the Bible and know how you should live.